Good evening and happy almost Labor Day, my friends at Sanctuary Online. We are just chatting here before we started the recording about the waning these last few days of summer. And I don't know about you, but it is cold and rainy up here in northern Michigan today, like cold and rainy, which is cool because by the weekend, when Cheryl and I will be volunteering at a golf outing with no shade and we'll be carrying around big posts for the golfers and things, it's going to be 90 some degrees in Michigan. So it's our own taste of Texas for the summertime, and we're looking forward to it somewhat. Anyway, excited to bring you here tonight. We're just chatting about this book for August, and excited about next month because Jane finished next month's book last night and gave us a phenomenal preview. So thank you for that, Jane Ann. And Cheryl, these lovelies are all yours.
Thank you. So, did everybody read this book all the way? Mm-hmm. All the way. Cool. Yeah.
Right to the bitter end.
You didn't finish it, Carol?
Okay, spoiler alerts. Oh my God.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. All right. Did you get most of the way through it?
I got about halfway through.
About halfway through
because it really gets complicated, but it gets so good. And then if you read at the very, very, very end, what became of all the people, it's
the aftermath.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Yeah, now I don't want to say too much because you're gonna spoil it, but
no, please talk freely because it doesn't spoil a book for me. For sure.
Like the leather factory that they protected all those years in Milan became the Ferragamo shoe company. So it's really worth finishing. I would encourage you to finish it.
Oh, I will.
Yeah.
So let's just start with what your impressions of this book were.
Well, I'll start. I had just finished The Choice, which was Auschwitz and whatever. And I thought when I read the previews, I was thinking, oh my gosh, it's another war story. But because it's from the Italian point of view and in Italy, with Mussolini and the Catholic Church, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's going to be good. And truly it was. So I just loved Pino.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this book, and I just found it fascinating. I was telling Cheryl before you guys got on, my parents are from Italy, and actually my mom was living in Sicily. She hadn't yet come to the US, and she had some stories about the war as well. One of my uncles actually was in the Italian army, and he was in North Africa and was captured. And, but he later got released, but he came back as a skeleton, basically. But yeah, I mean, this whole Italian viewpoint for the war, I mean, it was just chaotic there. And anyway, I just marveled at the young man in this book and the strength he had to do the things he did. And, yeah, it was a great book. Thank you, Jane Ann, for suggesting it.
You're welcome.
And it was a true story.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it didn't seem possible that could be a true story.
I know. Yeah, it seemed like it was a lot of what did you think, Cynthia? By the way, welcome.
Oh, thank you.
What did you think it couldn't seem possible that it was a true story?
Well, it was all the detail and the various roles. He played so many different roles that I could not imagine anyone in anybody's army getting away with so many different roles. He wasn't they talk about intelligence people, but when you talk to somebody who was in intelligence in the war and so on, my deceased partner's close cousin was there. He flew over Vietnam and interpreted everything that was going on because he knew Vietnamese. But in other words, Bob said when you're in that type of espionage, you're always behind the scenes. And, you know, he said, you're observing and you're reporting and you're doing, but you're always behind. See, this guy was right in the thick of everything.
Yeah.
It totally amazed me that through everything he went through, A, he wasn't killed himself, and B, that he couldn't kill him. He wasn't killed, and he couldn't kill when he had the opportunity, because he had a lot of opportunities. And that boggled my mind. And I would just like, it was such a web. And I always wondered whether the general knew that he was an informant. Because it doesn't, like, you don't really, he does say observer at the end, but you just don't know. So were they protecting each other? I don't know. I just was fascinated by it all.
Yeah.
Well, and then he met Anne.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was so weird. But as soon as he met her, I knew she was going to end up dying. I was just like,
oh my
the
God.
way this book is going, you know, she's not going to live. So that was
watch
very
that,
upsetting.
Yeah. You know,
Like,
for all the good that Pino had done in the war, helping people escape and everything. I mean, just the fact that he couldn't stop the shooting where the Italians were shooting the German people, including Anna, who they associated with the general and everything, even though she was Italian. The fact that he couldn't save her, I mean, it just burns in his heart, and probably will always. But I mean, there's some things you just cannot do, and you have to let it go. And I mean, they would have killed him too if he, you know, if he had the opportunity to get up there and try and stop it. And also too, I mean, he unfortunately, because he had been with the general and he had that swastika on his arm, I mean, a lot of the Italians did see him as a traitor, and it's a miracle that he wasn't killed himself. Because, I mean, people didn't know he was a spy, you know. But anyway, wow.
One takeaway from the book for me was that it made war so real, that there was always the opportunity to kill someone or be killed. It over and over, he had to kill or he would be killed. Over and over that happened. And this year, around the 4th of July at church, I was sitting near 2 or 3 fellows. I mean, I knew that I don't know, they're younger than I am, but anyway, it turned out they had been in the war in Afghanistan, and they said how much the fireworks affects them. And I thought, I never thought of that. And they said, oh yeah, they said we all acknowledge it. It's a little spot of PTSD in our soul that'll never leave us. And that's what I thought about him. Every situation he was in, so many of them were kill or be killed. I've never lived like that, so it's giving me a new understanding of life in war.
The amount of cruelty that people have during war and how much they had built up that anger, so they were so crazy at the end of it when they killed Anna or Anne. It just boggles my mind that humans have that in them. You know, it's just, I mean, the Germans themselves boggles your mind, but I mean, I can't even watch things suffer, you know. So I don't know how you could kill somebody. It's like,
Yeah. Kay, you said the author did a lot of research, and what do you have any other comments about that, Kay, or in specific?
No, but I think in terms of, I mean, because he says at the beginning that some of that is, you know, because he couldn't gather all the information in terms of it. So it's like, it's not biography of what happened to Pino, but, and all those that were in there, but that he did have a lot, I believe that he had a lot of information that was accurate in terms of the, you know, the military war part of it. That, but he, and in talking to people that were there. So, I mean, I think from that perspective, he spent a lot of time, with the main character as well as other people that knew the story. So I mean that he invested a lot of time and energy, not just writing a story.
And going back there,
Yeah.
and it always, it fascinated me too at the end that all these, that Italy has always been a manufacturing country, like they manufacture leather and shoes and fashion and glass, and I mean it's a very productive country for the size of it, and that all that was going on, like the Germans were using all of that through the whole war. And you'd hear these dapplings of Auschwitz and this and that. They had no clue what was going on in the rest of the world. They only knew what was happening in their part of the world and how it was affecting them, and how when Milan fell and was in ruins, like it was just like it was shocking. But the web, I think it was the web of it all that just lured me in. Even the church and the priests and them trying to get over the border and protecting Mussolini, and it was, I just found it real but surreal at the same time.
So was this for you guys news, as far as you weren't familiar with the Italian aspect of what happened in World War II? Was this like a lot of like history information for you, or were you guys familiar with it from before?
For me, I knew part of it just because of my Italian heritage. The Italians first were fighting as part of the Axis, and then they switched sides to the Allies. But one thing I did not realize was that some of the people were following Mussolini, who of course was just a puppet basically, and just a fool basically. But other people were following the king, and those were the people who had that alliance now with the US instead of with Germany. And then you had the partisans who were just people fighting, you know, in any way they can to, you know, for the, to, I don't know, just as part of the resistance. So in a way, it was just real chaotic, but because you had all these people who were fighting against, I mean, you didn't know sometimes who you were fighting against, just because, you know, the whole politics with Italy. But it was such a shame that Italy had to go down that dark hallway, you know, that dark place with Germany. I mean, it's just really a shame. And also too, I think the book, it was so good to just hear a person's story as things were developing. It wasn't like your usual history book where it says, oh, Italy, blah, 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 you know, just very dry. This brought it all to life. I mean, it really did.
So I
Yeah,
didn't
there was.
ever
Go ahead,
understand.
Julie.
I didn't understand why the church was protecting Mussolini.
You
And
know,
what was he before the war?
with the Pope, I mean, he was criticized a lot. That was Pope Pius XII. And he was criticized because he did have fairly good relations with Germany, with Hitler. From what I read, he didn't want to upset the cart too much. He wanted to try to work behind the scenes to try to help, you know, some Jewish people escape. But he did not bear down on the Germans. And the reason being is he didn't want to make it harder for the church to help, you know, Jewish people and other people escape.
Well,
But
also, the Vatican is one of the most wealthy places per square foot in the whole world.
Mhm.
And he was, I think the Pope was very afraid of the jewels and everything that they could come in and 2 days they could take,
Pillage.
they just take everything. So
Yeah.
he had to kind of make peace because of all that. I felt that was kind of recognized that he just tried to play both sides because he had to really with what would happen if he didn't.
Yeah, he was responsible for all that, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Mhm.
Protecting it. And so even though it meant that he couldn't maybe voice all of his particular political views or whatever,
Mhm.
he,
You know,
yeah, but he was still able to do what he wanted to do as far as taking care of people. So
you
go
know,
ahead.
Cynthia. Oh, I was gonna say, Cynthia, thank you for that. You know, for pointing out about all the money and all the jewels that the Pope had, because yeah, Germany would have, you know, taken all of that. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, the Pope was protecting. I mean, that was one of the things he was really super protecting.
But we weren't, now I feel stupid. We were the guy that we kept seeing with Mussolini wasn't the Pope. He was
Oh, the
what
cardinal.
was
One of the bishops.
bishops. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get the Pope's point of view. I didn't know if that particular bishop was representing the view of the church or just his church, you know. Because it did seem like he had a relationship with, who was it that he kept going to help the people? What was that guy's name that Pino kept going, that he was helping people escape? Wasn't he in a representative of the church?
Yeah, Father Ray,
Father
who led
Ray,
the
yeah.
boys group. Yeah. Yeah, the Catholic Church actually came out very well in this book because yes, Father Ray, and then you had some of the other people, like there was a Sumerian who was forging documents for people. He was from the church, and it was a cardinal who was also dealing with general layers, and he
Mhm.
actually was a good person and was trying to help. But yeah, you know, a lot of the answers to a lot of things in life is always money. And you're right, Cynthia, about you know, protecting the assets that they already had.
Yeah, we went to the Vatican and I was shocked when I walked into the Vatican how everything is just dripping with gold. I mean,
Yes.
I
Every
knew it was
church.
wealthy, but I didn't know. I mean, I had never seen wealth like that in my life. For being a church, I was thinking, how many people could you feed with this money? You know, things like that.
And not just that church, but every church in Italy. Like they're all the
Oh,
same, gilded in gold, just gilded in gold and marble.
oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
It reminds me of when I was first out of college, and I later I joined a Methodist church near me in Detroit, and that's how I met my friend George, who took me to MCC in 1972. But anyway, the church was just in a very changing neighborhood, and it was a beautiful, big, wealthy church. The music program was endowed. It was just, you know, but we young people said, well, you got a gym here that nobody uses, and you've got roller skates for 100 people, and these kids are all in the streets with nothing to do. You know, can't we open that up? And that we knew it would take money, insurance, and you know, you don't just open to children and staffing and all. And they said, oh, well, we'll approach Mrs. Kresge. Now that was Kmart's owner. And we'll see what she, you know, and boy, that was not allowed. And Mrs. Kresge gilded that year the front of the church with gold, literally, just like
Wow.
just like in the Vatican.
Wow.
And of course, as young people in the 60s, we were just all shocked. It was like, can't she see that? But she couldn't, and that was the way it was.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's money does talk.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I just felt that you know, you're right. The Catholic Church was portrayed as, I think there was the reality of it. And once someone told me this, when you talk about different priests, forgotten what was going on. And I said, well, I don't think that's allowed, etc. And they went, well, you know,
Oh, yeah.
we're a long way from Rome here, Cynthia.
Oh.
We're a long way from Rome. We can, unless we do something horrendous, we have some ability to do what we want to do.
Interesting.
Father Ray was sanctuary for a lot of people in that. Like when you think
Yes.
of all the characters and it started out so innocent, taking people over the border and having this little route, and it got more and more and more complicated. But it was his church was definitely sanctuary for everybody, for everybody at whatever level, from Mussolini to the general.
Yeah. So was this a fast read?
Oh yeah, I was immersed in it.
I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I thought it was a complicated read. You had to keep in track of all the characters,
Mhm.
but they didn't come back and forth. They came into the picture and then they went one way or another. I mean, I read books where they go back and forth and it's kind of complicated, but yeah, it was a intense read.
And the author, I think, did a great job writing this. I mean, it was interesting and it moved. There weren't any boring parts whatsoever.
Mhm.
Yeah, even when he was describing a lot of what the details were about Milan or about some of the places that were there and stuff, it wasn't boring. Yeah.
What did you all feel about Mario, Pino's brother? I never quite understood him. I know he was a vigilante, and I know he was part of the informant group. I guess because Pino was wearing the swastika, it made all the difference, but I just didn't quite get him. And yet Pino went out of his way to protect him as well.
Was he a partisan or was he in the actual alliance, that army that was with the alliance?
I think he was a partisan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just part of the resistance.
Yeah.
And yeah, but
Yeah,
I mean, I think he was a strong guy as far as the resistance, and he couldn't believe that his brother, who
Mhm.
he had together, they had taken these people across to
Mhm.
you know, across to Switzerland or Austria, and he
Mhm.
couldn't believe that his brother would join, with the Nazis. And so he
But did
didn't
he-
understand, he didn't know, and so Pino had to protect him, because if he found out, he could be killed for
But I don't think Mario ever knew that the parents set Pino up to be in the German army
Mhm.
to save
No.
him, different than the brother, right?
right.
Like I would have been
He
furious if
told them that during that one huge fight they had.
yeah.
I mean, it was when they almost killed each other. It seems like he told them during that.
Mhm.
But I don't think it would have made a difference to him, because it seemed like, it was so wrong, and he had his brother on a pedestal so high. It just crushed him.
Hmm.
I could relate to him.
Yeah, and his Pino's best friend Carletto, I mean, he also, was like Mimo, Pino's brother. I mean, the fact that seeing Pino with that swastika and the German uniform, I mean, that was just terrible. And I'm sure he was so disappointed in Pino.
Yeah.
But wasn't he allowed to tell Carletto by that time? It seems like the war was over by the time he saw him. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was later when Carletto had found out that Pino was actually a spy for the Italians. And
Yeah, but it wasn't the end of the war. The war was still going on, and there were
Yeah.
still things that, if again, I think he was just trying to protect them too, you know, and knew that if they knew and he was found out, you know, there could be ramifications for them as well.
Well, it's always that same thing, you know, yeah, every person can tell just one person.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who would you recommend read this book?
That's a funny question. I've given it to my neighbor, and I've given it to my very good friend Diana, who went to the Holy Land with me. Her dad, they're from Cittadinova in Italy, and he's 90 and he's loving it. He has to have it in big print because he's losing his eyesight, but he's just loving it. He said, "Oh, I'm Pino all the way," and he's what, 90. And my neighbor's in his 50s, and then I've had a couple of other friends read it as well. I took it out of the library. I didn't buy it. I had it out of the library, but I've had all different ages read it because I keep talking about it. I just keep talking about it. That'll switch now to lessons in chemistry, but I just thought I was fascinated by it, just fascinated.
I didn't know that lessons in chemistry was in such demand.
And guess what? In October or November, there is a 6 episode miniseries coming on Apple TV of it.
Really?
So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. The librarian told me that. She said all of a sudden there's 19 people on the waiting list and they have 2 weeks, but they're all trying to read it. All these book clubs are trying to read it before the series comes out.
Oh, that makes sense.
Oh, I
with
didn't
our
realize
library, we're like number 400, so I went and bought the book.
Yeah, me too.
We're
I
never
bought
gonna
it.
get it in time.
They have to have a couple of months subscription to Apple TV and then cancel.
There you go.
Yeah.
You have to do that.
Yeah, I haven't heard exactly. I have Apple TV, so on one of my televisions, so I'll have to look and see if there's previews of it. Sometimes the what they do with it isn't the same as the book, because I thought the book was amazing, but
well, you certainly got me ready to read it.
yeah.
The book to me was a fun read. I liked the read.
Yes.
It moves. I mean, there's some sad parts in it, but it moves along so much. There's so much activity and so on. And positive, just things going on.
In this book now, or are you talking about lessons in chemistry?
Lessons in chemistry.
Oh, okay. All
So
right.
you read it too.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to that. Let me
I
come
wonder,
back to this one for a minute. What?
I wonder how Pino, like, I just kept thinking, how is he going to live with having seen what he'd seen, watched what he watched, having watched his only true love be executed? I mean, he was so, on the one hand, the observer, truly the observer, and on another hand, like completely impotent, like he couldn't, there was so many opportunities he could have had to be sort of leading and doing, but I think watching the love of your life, even though their relationship was limited, watching that happen, I just don't know how he lived.
Yeah.
And then he could have killed him, and he never did. He was paces away from killing him, and he couldn't do it.
Do you think that the general really was going to go back there to check on them, or do you really think there really was some kind of papers there?
My own feeling, I think the general really was intending to go back for Dolly and for his or her maid. And of course, that was the night that Pino arrested the general, and that is why Dolly and Anna were taken. There was no one there to protect them or take them away. The Italians went and grabbed them and brought them to justice, I guess. So anyway, Pino had to live with that as well. If only he hadn't arrested the general that night.
Yeah, if only he'd let him go back, right?
Mhm.
But
Right.
but I understood that Layers thought that they were gone already. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And then there was that damn suitcase. Like that
Oh.
suitcase.
oh yeah,
No.
It
Why
was
wasn't
such a
it? Why didn't they look?
It was such a focal point, and everywhere it was guarded, it was kept, it was revered, it was secretive, it was powerful, it was like it could have been empty for all we know.
Did it say what happened to him, General Ayers, at the end?
yeah. It says in the afterword, Kelly. If you read all the afterword, it talks about.
I did, but I don't remember.
Hmm.
I'll look.
Do you think? I mean, after Pino, after the war, and all these things that happened, would you call his response PTSD?
That's a good question.
What part
mean-
of the response are we talking about?
Well, the way he lived, what he did after the war, the way he he carried on his life.
Mm.
I don't know how he I don't know how he compartmentalized all of what he'd seen and lived and heard and did. I just, you know, even when they drove off the road and were like, there was so many times when he could have died. And then he leads this sort of, I guess, as not low life, I don't mean it like that, but he never allowed anything to trigger him from there on in, right? Like he was somewhat unresponsive. He did have a life and he did marry and stuff, but he did not touch down into those areas ever, didn't allow it, which takes great strength, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not your typical PTSD for sure. But when I saw him jumping from, not jumping, but he would get involved in a relationship and he gets, divorced and he gets involved in another relationship. And, he couldn't ground himself. He couldn't get centered. He was always, driving fast cars or doing skiing on the mountains. And he loved all those things, but he couldn't get grounded or centered, it seemed like to me.
And after being so devoted to Anna in fantasy and in thought and so apart from reality, because they really weren't together that much, and yet she propelled his dream of her, propelled him, and then complete opposite.
Yeah.
Even before he saw her again, it propelled him.
Yeah. Do you think he ever forgave himself for her death or for not acknowledging her?
No. I think it says that. I think he says that somewhere towards the end, that he didn't, life would go on, but that he could have done things differently.
Yeah. What did, he talked about, he went back, and one of the things that finally pulled him out of his immense grief or his immense depression, if you would, was how Anna said she tried to live. Do you remember that? I bookmarked it and said she tried to live moment by moment, looking for reasons to be grateful, trying to create her own happiness and grace, and to use them as a means to a good life in the present and not a goal to be achieved some other day. She didn't believe much in the future. And that was what he tried to adopt, as his way of life.
Where is that, Cheryl? What page is that on?
Well, hell, Kelly, I have an iPad.
Oh yeah.
1120 in my book, but
Mine doesn't even go that far.
I know.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah, let me see, Kelly, what chapter that was in, if I can figure it out.
That's why I quit reading on there, because I never can figure out how to highlight anything or mark it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in the aftermath, because it's,
Oh,
you
it
know,
is?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what do you think of that philosophy? Does that her philosophy resonate with you?
Well, she herself had something that happened that was really terrible. It was on her 9th birthday. Her and her father were going to go out sailing, and it was really stormy and windy and everything. And first he said no, but she kept pestering him. Yes, let's go, and he did. And that's when he somehow fell overboard and drowned, and so that's on her mind, and she's trying to deal with that. I mean, from that day on, trying to deal with that terrible thing. And of course her mother too is real upset because, if only Anna hadn't, pestered him so much, about her birthday and going out, he would have been alive. So her mother didn't make things easy for Anna, and so trying to have some type of philosophy to continue on in some type of progressive, positive way. I mean, that became her philosophy. At least that's what I think.
I can relate to how that's how she had to manage, because there really was, you knew what was going to happen after the war, especially,
Just to live moment to moment and find some gratitude or some gratefulness for what you have right there and make some happiness out of that where you were at. Yeah.
That's somewhat of a contrast to how he lived, right? Because he was living in the future and projecting this amazing romance and this incredible relationship that they had or have or could have. And then in contrast, she was moment by moment. So she probably didn't think, and especially under the circumstances, that their she had no idea what the relationship was going to be like. But even that Christmas, when they did that whole, I think it was Christmas, right? They went back to his house. They had that, anyway, they were in cahoots together. They both survived. And he just envisioned this amazing time afterwards. And they did have that one little amazing time. Like, they didn't have that much time together when, in the scheme of things, they did not have that much time together.
But at one point near their last of their time together, they did kind of commit to one another and to their future.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Just at the end there.
Well, and how long was it when he was going over there and seeing her for, at the lady's house or the general's house or whatever? I mean, that could have been.
That's right.
Years,
Well, it was a couple of years. The whole book was 2 years, right? So.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. That was they snuck the shortwave radio in. I couldn't remember what I couldn't remember, but yes, thank you for that.
Yeah, well, that's what they did. And she
was
was
that Christmas?
Yeah, it was Christmas Eve.
Okay.
Because they were convincing the guards that they had all these things that, there's high romance and wine and all this, and that's what gonna wear and stuff like that. Yeah. Were you guys aware of how the Nuremberg trials sort of drifted to a close? Was it mostly the Italian based ones, or does anybody know?
I don't know.
The war trials, you mean?
Yeah, the war trials.
I don't know. I've even heard some now, where they discover somebody.
Yeah.
And executed people as well.
Yeah, I've only heard of like some of the German ones who were executed, and also the Rosenthals, I think they were
Right.
spies. They were US spies for Germany. Yeah, they were executed.
Yeah, and how many
Right.
people got away is very sad to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it was devastating to me that Layers got away. Barb says the Nuremberg trials were for German Nazis. But what
Oh.
about, I mean, Layers was a German Nazi. Those guys,
Oh, yeah.
but what happened was, I mean, and I, they allude to these bars of gold that he had, but it sounds like that really is what he had and really is what he was able to move through. Do you guys think that, why
Yeah,
he
I
was able?
thought so. Yeah, I thought so. Also too, he had made some deals which were secret, and that's how he survived not being arrested. And so of course he had a good life after that. But yeah, he made some secret deals, which we don't
I
really
wondered,
know.
like if some of the people he helped that seemed so opposite to his personality, if he even told those people, you tell them General Layer saved you,
Yeah.
like if he used that to tell the Americans or something, because it's the Americans who let him go.
Yeah. Well, and that's what he said. And to get out of, because he was in jail for a while and stuff, but he had he had some records of those kinds of things, and those were the main records that he had that demonstrated that he had helped people in a variety of different ways, the Catholic Church included and so on, right? Has anybody read Inside the Third Reich by Albert Speer? Speer was his boss, remember, during this whole thing, or supposedly kind of his boss.
How could he have written a book?
Speer?
Didn't he get killed?
Well, he wrote it before, and he also got let off. And then what happened was, according to the afterword there, that Layers then went to the authorities and said, let me tell you what he did. And then they went after Speer, but he got away. He was off in Chile or somewhere. I don't know where he was. Huh?
Argentina.
Argentina.
A lot of Nazis went to Argentina.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, because there were things inside that book that apparently told about Layers, and he just said, oh, it's lies, it's all lies, right? That was written in that. So I just wondered if anybody had read that. So how has this book impacted you and your life? Is there anything in the book that makes you think of present day life, or
Yes, I watched the war now. With it's just frightening to see the Russians and all that's going on. It's and I think of that, one day you do one thing, another day you might choose to kill somebody.
Yeah, I just don't understand why the world is allowing them to do that. It's like, what if we just went over and invaded Mexico and took them over, I mean, they used to be the same as Texas, we used to be together. So, they're messing our country up right now, or at least Texas up. So let's just go take them over. We could run them better than them. The world would be outraged. We wouldn't get away with it. Why is Russia allowed to do that? Nobody.
Well, I mean, the Putin is such a heavy-handed dictator that if anyone raises even a little pinky against him, they're killed, and he finds some way of killing them even if he has to, you know, have the whole airplane blown up so that the one guy's killed, right? So,
But that
So,
mercenary, the
with
guy
that-
that was his mercenary is was leading a charge against him. He
mhm.
and a whole bunch of them just blew up. But I think Kay's right. I think it has to do with it's all nuclear warfare. At any
Mhm.
moment, any of these lunatics can just blow everything up. So Ukraine's a microcosm of what it could really look like.
Mhm.
well, somebody or CIA or even the more secret people, I don't know who they are, but you hear about them, could go over there and kill him. Mike always says, why isn't somebody killing him?
Like they took out Bin Laden and all those others, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
We don't understand, do we?
No. I don't.
How it's impacted me is I find it scary. Like I was enthralled in the book, but I do find it scary. And I'm not a person who generally speaking lives in fear, but when you realize the capacity of evil to destroy and to defame and to take down countries and cities and I mean, Putin looks evil. I mean, he just has an evil look to him. But for a young boy like Pino, who starts out at 18, who's really somewhat naive, like didn't have a clue really what he was getting into, to go through that whole period of life. And it was what, a period of 2 years that whole book took place.
Mhm.
Like that seemed like a long 2 years.
Yeah.
And but it did stir fear of the unknown to me.
Mhm.
And you know what's really going on out there when he saw it firsthand and he couldn't actually do anything. What am I capable of doing? I don't think much, but it makes it scares me. I can't watch war movies. I couldn't watch Passchendaele or Saving Private Ryan. I can't do any of that. It just freaks me out too much. But to have a firsthand view like that kid did at starting out at 18 just freaked me right out.
For
But
me,
I love the book.
yeah, for me, the book impacts me this way. No matter what problems I'm going through right now, they are
Mhm.
nowhere near as bad as what Pino had to go through and all the other people
Mhm.
in this war. I mean, you know, there's just no comparison. I'm not afraid every day of being shot or whatever, or having my loved ones taken away or killed. None of that I'm facing right now. And I should feel very, very grateful for that.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, the interesting thing to me is you alluded to it, Jane Ann, was the devastation that a country can do, or you know how they can impact something and how they can destroy something. But in addition to that, the impact that it has on the other people, like for instance with Ukraine, I mean, the impact it has on them is they're out for revenge. They're out to kill. They're protecting, yes, but they're getting more and more involved in weaponry and in killing and in all those things. And that's what happened with the Italians and with resistance and so on. You know, it's like they became so overwhelmed with everything, they didn't even stop to find out, hey, is Anna, did she really do that? They weren't going to wait and find that out. They were just, you know,
Mhm.
on a tear, you know, and people were, nobody was trying to find out anything. They were just making a judgment and shooting them, you know. So it impacts not just you know, the country that's doing it, but it takes a huge toll on all the people that are involved in the war.
And
Right.
even the industry, like Ukraine supplies corn and wheat. I didn't realize it was such a high percentage to most of your other countries in Europe.
Yep.
And so when they don't have, when they were bombing ships out in the Baltic Sea, and it was carrying wheat and grain, they're cutting off the supply. And same thing happened in Milan. They cut off the entire production. And Milan was one of the most industrialized cities at that point.
Right.
And when Lars was going around to all those factories and making them go into weapons production, like the amount of control, and Ukraine's a tiny country, but it has a huge export business. Okay, then all of that shut down. Like, so the power of the bigger nations to cut off and or supply the weapons or whatever is like, there's so much going on behind the scenes, and that little country is just the tip of the iceberg, right? Freaks me out. I shouldn't live in fear, but those kinds of things freak me out. They do.
So I didn't understand that someone's here said, I think, that Italy allied with Germany first in the war and then later. Wow, I did not.
He was himself a fascist, right? And so
yeah.
he was aligned with Adolf Hitler. You know,
Mhm.
he was a puppet for Adolf Hitler, and he really didn't have a whole lot of power. He just was used. But the people that had been part of, you know, Mussolini's dictatorship, his fascist regime, aligned themselves with the Nazis. Now, they were considered second-class citizens all the way. You can see that in the book, how the Nazis kind of treated the fascists, you know, during the book. But you know, but they were still useful to Germany in that way. So
Well,
yeah, so anyway.
just as an ending note, I used to work closely with a woman who, she's still my friend, for 10 years, and her parents were in the diplomatic corps, and she had lived in Vietnam as a child and been air vac out when the US gave up, and she'd lived all over the world. And her father was high up in the administration, and every time something would happen, we would say, Peggy, what do you think about this? And she'd say, I can only tell you one thing. And we would say, what? And she'd say, whatever you're reading or seeing or thinking, it's not really like that. She
Wow.
said, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that you cannot imagine, you know, what's going on. It's that complicated.
Yeah. And there's so much politics behind it all, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
A book like
you
this makes
guys-
it very real.
Huh?
A book like this, though, makes it very real.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
It was immersive. You got right into it. Like
Mhm.
it was very engaging.
Yeah. It was a really unique way of sharing information about a perspective of the war, right?
Right.
And yeah.
I mean, we're talking here. I'm going to have to go exploring because I thought I understood history and I don't even know what a fascist is. I'm looking it up in here.
This will be a learning experience for you, Kelly. Go get it.
Yeah, we're going to figure it out.
Was it this group that recommended the personal librarian? Did we
Yeah.
all read that together?
I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. The author of that book has done a series on women behind these great men, and so I'm just about to read what's called The Other Einstein. It's the woman behind.
Yes, we read it.
You guys
I
heard
read
it?
it. I read
Yes.
it for another book.
Okay.
It's the woman
Yeah.
behind Einstein, or the one?
Yes.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, his first wife.
his first
Mhm.
wife.
Oh,
a
wow.
true-
That's
it's true.
interesting.
They
Yeah.
also did a book. She did a book, The Two First Ladies. You read that?
Yes. Yeah. I
And
haven't
it-
read that one, but
Well, it's
I was.
out, and it's very interesting. I just finished it. It's about Eleanor Roosevelt and an African-American woman who was very prominent at the time, and how they worked together on Franklin Roosevelt to get change for the African-American. It's a wonderful book. Just came out.
Wow.
I mean, her research is similar to this guy Sullivan's research. Like he really, especially in the aftermath of it and afterthought, like he spent however many years traveling to the villages and really getting a grip on the on the historical context of it. So I'm really anxious to read that other one.
Cool.
Mm.
Um,
Anyway, thank you for reading it, because I thought it was amazing.
It was amazing.
Maybe October's book. Which one? Einstein? The Einstein one?
So the Einstein one's name is The Other Woman?
The
No,
other
the other
Einstein.
Einstein.
The
The
Other
other
Einstein.
Yeah.
I just think this is you all are proving why network marketing companies don't tell you when the next 3 events are and where they are, because you'd all buy the tickets, you'd all buy the hotel rooms out, you'd all do all the extra overachiever stuff. I think it's great to have these books like decided, because you're not then stressed, except then you go ahead and read them ahead of time. Cheryl, I don't know what you do with these people. They're just like,
well,
they're
we're
either over
apparently
or they're citizens.
starting to think about reading The Other Einstein.
I know. I think that's it.
That's a
The Other
good book.
Einstein, and I think
I'm getting ready
think,
to buy it.
the 2
I
first
would read
ladies.
that
Thank you,
again.
Kelly. See, you're proving my point. But I think the other Einstein and the 2 first ladies would be what a neat back-to-back, setup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be good.
That would be great.
You guys want to? Do you guys want to read one of those books for October after we read
yeah.
Lessons in Chemistry?
Yeah, she's a good author. Marie Benedict, I think, or
Mhm.
Mhm.
Marie Benedict.
I
And
think so.
this is The Other Einstein, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
funny because in the bookstore, when I was buying Lessons in Chemistry, because I had to wait so long to renew it, I said, this compares to The Personal Librarian. And I thought that was my book of the year last year. I thought it was such a great read. And she goes, oh, she has a series of 4 books, and they're all the women. They're all the women behind these, famous people.
Wow.
And so I was saying, yes, my American book club always comes up with these amazing titles of stuff that I would never otherwise read, like Anthem. I would have never read Anthem,
Yeah,
but
me
I
either.
did like it. And
Jane Ann, speaking of that, it was a Canadian librarian that got, that Joe got the recommendation for this Lessons in Chemistry, right? So
There you go. Yeah.
I'll let you know.
While in
she's-
Canada, by the way.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
totally Canadian.
Yeah.
The first ladies is just the first ladies, not the 2 first ladies, right?
Cynthia,
I don't have it right here. I don't remember.
Well, I
I'll
have
Google.
the book here
I'll
pulled
Google.
up by
That's my
her.
job.
The first ladies.
It's
First
by
ladies.
Marie Benedict.
Oh, it's
That's
just
it.
First
Wow.
Lady.
That's a good book. Well, she writes it with an African-American woman, doesn't she? Or is it just her?
It says with Victoria Christopher Murray.
Yes.
Yeah.
no relation to me, of course.
Well, you guys, this has been a great discussion. We're going to do Lessons in Chemistry on the 26th of September.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we in agreement via vote of hands to read The Other Einstein for October?
Yep.
Looks
Yeah.
like it. All right. Then that's our October book, and we'll see what happens after that. We don't want to get too involved in too many of these. There might be some guys coming back that want to read something about.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Ken had a book and we sort of pushed it aside because he said he didn't want it to be the same as something we just read. Now, I don't remember what it was, but it sounded good. Does anybody have that remembrance of that?
Yes, it was. I don't remember the exact thing of it, but it was about a young, I think a gay boy that was in, I don't remember if it was World War II or
Yeah.
was it World War II?
I don't know which war, but yeah, I think he just wanted to give some room between genres.
Wars. Yeah, between war stuff.
So
Yeah.
let's not lose that.
No, let's not use that.
Just the Tuesday, October 24th, if that's the day, or Tuesday, October 31st. I have a commitment already that I can't change on
You're a busy
Tuesday,
girl.
October 24th. So I don't want to miss it, just so you know.
All right, so let's figure this out.
All right, let's work on Jane Ann's schedule here. Come on.
So
It'll
Kristen,
be the week before or the week after, but not the 24th.
well, we can't do it on Halloween night. That'd be silly. That's the 30. Next Tuesday is the 31st.
Well, we could do it on the 17th, just since we have it so early, and you guys are all gonna read it early anyway, so.
Is the
We do.
September
We're
one
ahead
on
of the game.
19th?
We're ahead of the game.
The
What about-
September one is the 26th.
Okay.
Cheryl, what about a non-Tuesday? I know that freaks everybody out.
It does.
The silence.
I don't know.
What day is Halloween? Halloween's a Tuesday as well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah,
31st.
31st.
The
Well, we don't
17th
do-
would be
We don't
okay.
do trick or treating here, so I don't have to worry about that, but.
We live in a
Um,
neighborhood with children.
Tuesdays is my theater and it just so happens that 3 of the new seasons are all it's Tuesday, the 17th and the 24th, which 2 weeks in a row, I can't believe that I have two theater things right in a row, because that
Oh,
never
Oh, yeah,
does
so the
happen.
17th also, Jan, you can't do the 17th or the 24th.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Oh, okay. So you could do the 31st, but it's Halloween.
Yeah.
Well, let's ask the group here, because 8 o'clock is dark. I mean, really, folks should be done. Cheryl, at our house, we can hire Mom and Bader to finish up, you know? So it wouldn't be crazy.
Wouldn't be dark here in Texas. It's 7 o'clock.
It won't be dark, or it will be dark, Kelly?
Won't be dark yet. Not
It's
7.
a month. We want to go later?
No.
Halloween gets
I
dark
can do
around
later. It
8.
doesn't, it doesn't matter.
Can-
Cheryl will be
Halloween.
asleep.
What would you guys think of, you don't have trick-or-treaters, Kelly?
No, but I have been going to Samantha's because she has lots.
Oh, okay.
Fun.
All right, well, we could decide to do it on a different night. You know,
I
instead of
could care less. I'll
Tuesday.
come anytime.
Or,
We'll come anytime.
Yeah.
if we-
the 30
Monday before the 31st. What if you did that?
Monday, the 30th?
Yeah, it's the 5th Monday, so very often things aren't happening, you
Mm.
know, because a lot
Yeah.
of things happen every month. They happen on like the first 4. If there's a 5th, they're like, yeah, take a break. Carolyn Rose, what are you're doing the what can you
Well,
guys
no, we're fine.
Yeah.
Any day or any time is
Yeah.
fine with us.
Or the 24th would actually be 4 weeks. So if we did it on the 23rd, that would be the 4-week mark instead of the
Do
3rd.
that too.
Yeah, I might have something that night, Cheryl, but
On the
No.
23rd? Joe?
yeah, yeah, just because it's the 4th Monday. But if it's
I
the
have a
5th
dental
Monday,
cleaning.
Let's do, how about, if we do October 30th, can you guys all make it? Monday?
Cynthia?
October 30th?
Yes, Kay, yes.
Okay,
Carolyn Rose,
Yes.
yes.
all right.
All right.
Let's do Monday, October 30th for The Other Einstein by Marie Benedict. Okay? And
Oh,
then
that'll be
we'll,
good.
we'll wait, and when Ken gets back in, we'll talk about his book for maybe for November or something, or at least
Okay,
we'll look at that, okay?
send us reminders on the.
And
Yeah, I
it's
will.
8 o'clock central, right? Is that, we're still at, you're 7, but I'm 8, right?
8
Yeah,
o'clock
we're
Eastern.
8 o'clock Eastern. And
Okay,
then
thank
7
you.
o'clock
7
Central.
Central.
Okay, you're in my book.
All right, it's in the
I will send out an email. I'm trying to get these emails together, guys, and I'm not very good at using the church team's email stuff. So if it comes out to you and it's kind of weird and it's not spaced properly and all that crap,
We
That's all.
forgive you.
Sorry about
that's
it.
because Cheryl's not good at that. So
Cheryl's like, I only send it to my bookies. I
I
said,
know.
Cheryl, this looks like, and she goes, I only send it to the bookies. I only send it to the bookies.
I know I won't send it out to anybody else unless I have it, unless Joe or Barb reviews it. I mean, my God, I might screw it up. So
Cheryl.
Well, I'm gonna say one thing. It's so good to see you all always, if you've read the book or not. I did, Rose, you spoke like so passionately tonight. I just loved it. Yeah, I don't often hear your
Yeah.
voice like that. And you like
I
were
was
just,
so happy about that too. Yay.
yeah, like, I don't know if they have awards in book club, but yeah, it was really interesting to listen to you, and I just love listening to all of y'all, your passion and your care for these characters and these stories. So it was really a wonderful listen tonight. Love you all,
Thank
and
you.
have a wonderful but safe Labor Day. as you know. And anybody, Carol and Rose, you guys in Florida? No? What do you live?
No.
No, we're on vacation. We're in the Kenosha Harbor. Or by
Okay,
the
all right, well-
Wisconsin, Joe.
Oh.
All right,
What's
well,
happening with the hurricane?
I'm gonna say, send your prayers to, I mean, tonight's gonna be a scary night. As this thing lands tomorrow morning, right? So
Yeah, Florida.
big prayers to
Where's
Florida. They
the
haven't had something
Kenosha?
like this in 100 years, they said. It's high.
Where
It's
is it landing? Where is it landing? Or where are they
Um,
saying?
Tampa,
Up-
Tampa.
up near, and actually up near Tallahassee. It's
Mhm.
moving north and north.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is.
It's gonna hit the
Right
Big
at the
Bend.
very north, at the curve of Florida.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Oh, the
it's gonna come
panhandle.
in somewhere in
By
the
the
Big
panhandle.
Bend. They call
Yeah.
it the nature coast. There's not a lot
Mhm.
of cities or anything around there, but there's
Mhm.
some spectacular wildlife and natural
Oh.
habitats that are just gonna be devastated.
Oh,
Yeah, they were actually, and they were speaking about Cedar Key this morning. But then it went even north, and they were, I think the most recent, and Barb, you might have a TV on right there. They were looking at Tallahassee was looking pretty nervous this afternoon.
Yeah,
It keeps
Well-
going north, almost like it's gonna maybe go across the bottom of Georgia rather than across the top of Florida.
Oh, wow.
wow.
the Cedar Key thing, by it
Yeah.
moving north, that might actually make more flooding in Cedar Key. Because it'll be in that front left corner.
Yeah. And that, yeah,
And it'll push more water up in there. So, I mean, last I heard, they were talking about 12 to 15-foot storm surge
Oh, wow.
if it happens to coincide with high tide.
well, it's called the
and
King,
it'll-
actually.
Cedar Key.
Oh, you're talking to
They'll
them.
be
Yes.
the archaeologists will be looking for it when they get done, because that'll just take out the whole village.
Yeah,
That
and
was terrible.
they're actually calling it, it's coinciding with something called a king tide, which is one of the biggest tides of the year. And they're like, if it hits plus the king tide, it's gonna be quite something. Tampa right now is getting that first wave. If you guys know Tampa Bay, the concern is once the water starts coming in, the water can't go back out.
Right, right.
Bay. And so Tampa is just getting hit right now with that first band, the outer band. Not
Yeah.
even the hurricane yet, but that first band. So it's gonna be tough down there. Just keep, so many of us know so many MCCers and so many friends down there that we just keep them in your prayers. A night like tonight's not gonna be something any of us want to live through.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Your dog is
Right up.
upset about it.
Pardon, Kelly?
I said Kate's dog is very Mary Jane, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Dog is upset about it.
Yeah.
She keeps crying.
Maya.
She's crying. She's crying. I don't know why
Maya.
she's crying. Probably because
And
we've sat
Jody,
for a while.
you put a message in here that said November the First Ladies. I don't think we've decided that yet. We've only decided October.
No, I'm just being a shit disturber. Oh, I'm recording. Hold on.